Hey guys, welcome back to the Girlfriends and Goals podcast. My name is Samaria and I'm joined by my best friend and co-host.
Neosha.
All right, you guys know what we're here for. Okay, so get in here. We have some things to talk about. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Most important, meet us in the comments because this reunion. All
Yeah.
right, so Love is Blind season 7 reunion. They started with Taylor and Garrett, but they're still together. They looked great.
Yeah. I think I enjoyed their outfits the most as far as a couple pairing. Clearly, Taylor has gotten his fashion sense together and he seems to be enjoying it. I mean, it wasn't terrible. I would just say that he had a more safe
He
sense
didn't
of
have a fashion
fashion.
like a style. It was
Yeah.
basic. All
And
right.
they currently live in Fredericksburg, but they're going to move to DC, which I was actually very happy to hear. What about you?
Uh, I was happy to hear too. I think it would have been nice for Taylor had it worked out that she's able to go back to San Diego, but I think DC seems like a happy medium. Like,
Yeah, she was
yeah.
already living there. His family is closer. And because they've only been married a year and the
Mhm.
process is so quick, I feel like this is a good middle ground. It doesn't sound like he was shutting off the idea completely
Future.
for
Yeah.
forever, but I do think that it's more reasonable to, okay, you met in an accelerated process, to expect someone to pick up their whole life and move across the country to be
Hmm.
closer to your family. I
Hmm.
just I would be okay with it, but give it a few more years. His mama gonna be salty about taking her grandbabies away anyways. So I wouldn't even be factoring that in, but more so I don't know, it makes sense to not uproot him and y'all both
Hmm.
live there so quick.
I appreciate his willingness to try though, because
Mhm.
and I do hope at some point if she starts to feel like she wants to go back home that he is more open to it and does make, does
Mhm.
extend himself in that way. But a lot of people, a lot of men would not want to even consider moving for a woman. So
Mm-mm.
I think it's good that he did, and I hope that she gets her San Diego dream in the future. If that is still her dream, it sounds
Yeah.
like,
She said
she might have
Garrett is where
adapted.
home is. And I love
Yeah.
to hear it. I love that for her.
Okay, marriage. Y'all better do
Okay.
it.
I
Okay.
will say, you said men. I think people who go through a certain point in adulthood,
Mm.
being close by their families and
Hmm.
never uprooting at a younger age, I think it's hard for men and women. Because as he was saying,
Mm.
like, I guess even he didn't realize how hard it would be being so far away from his family. And so I'm also kind of not surprised that he's in his 30s. He's always been relatively close by.
Hmm.
So I don't know. I think under the right circumstances, I in it making sense in other areas, I could see him picking up and moving.
Yeah, I guess I was saying like more societally,
Oh
there's
yeah, we
almost
do
like an
see women.
expectation, yeah, of like
Hmm.
women. And so a lot of men might feed into that and be like, oh,
You
you
go where I
know,
go.
or yeah, not even like want to make that adjustment for a wife. So,
Yeah, no, you're right about that.
yeah.
Okay,
Okay. Next,
next.
Ashley
Hmm.
and Tyler. Can we have a moment of silence? Because
I
the
told you
girl is gone.
she's gone. I told you it's a wrap. What was it? Last recap or the one before? I said I think she's gone,
Can
and
I
that's
say,
oh, go ahead.
yeah. No, Ostefco, who is like,
Hmm.
one of my favorite YouTubers,
Hmm.
she was saying, "Oh, Ashley seems to be the woman who, as long as she got her husband, she checked that off her box. She's good."
Hmm.
And I was hesitant to say that about her. I was like, "Let's just wait till a few more weeks to see if we can make that conclusion." I stand corrected. It seems like that is a conclusion we can make.
And to think about it, we never really got to know her. You remember early on, I said even in the pods, she seemed a bit closed off. Like we did get to learn a bit about her family history,
Hmm.
but I think obviously towards the end, it was so much focus on him. But I still feel like we know who she is, we know a little bit about her upbringing, but how she is as a person, like we felt like this would be so far from her to do
because we saw ourselves in her a little bit. Like, you know, when you
Right,
see
but
representation on TV.
and we're like, wow, there's this beautiful black woman who has a nice personality, has an education, has all the things. We could see not even just ourselves, a lot of other successful black women in her. And so I think for us, it just seems so far fetched. But then when I look back, we didn't really know this lady like that.
We
Even
don't know her like that. Look at us distancing ourselves. We really don't know her.
who is she?
What's her name again?
But in all seriousness, so they walk out, they're holding hands, hugged up. She's smiling from the moment that they walk out. We can tell, yes, y'all are still together. She was holding on to that leg for dear life.
Ugh. I, Here's the thing. So she said, "Oh, I was quiet in the." She came with energy. I know I was quiet in the pods, but I have a lot to say tonight. Who do you think has better insight, me or social media? And here's the thing: if you have better insight than social media, and like, wait, you have better insight than social media and you still stayed with him, and we're getting yelled at for questioning your intelligence or questioning your, what did she say?
Maybe you didn't know. Not even intelligence, just we were trying to give you the benefit of the doubt in that when this was filmed, you didn't know. Maybe
Right.
because based off what we saw on camera, it was still a lie. And so we were trying to give you actually, I think, the benefit of the doubt. And yes, now this year, some people were dragging her, I think, on social media. But I think she felt a way. Like, technically, we didn't know y'all were still together until you started interacting in some of the comments. So I think if you had sat quiet until the reunion completely, we wouldn't have known until you walked out on stage and you may not have gotten as much heat. But you confirmed that y'all were still together. So
And,
people
and
ran with that.
and it's like, okay, we're not insulting your intelligence. We're giving you the benefit of the doubt because really, we don't want you. Like, we like you, Ashley. Like, we saw you on TV. We liked you. We wanted you to have a love story that was one for the books. We wanted to support you the same way that we've supported so many black women who have come on this show, like the Lauren, like the Tiffany, like the Bliss. Like, we wanted you to have a noteworthy love story. We wanted you to have a story that we could get behind, support, and root for, and be like, yes, black love, or yes, interracial love, or whatever love you were in. We wanted to root for you. So you're thinking we were maybe all trying to attack you, but we really liked you and just want the best for you. Even though you're a stranger, we don't know.
That, and it wasn't just the kid situation, it was he's scamming people out of money. And so I know on this reunion they only focused on the story with the kids, but we got a lot more information before this reunion, or right after this reunion was filmed. But obviously it wasn't released to us. So we were like, oh man, there's no way you know all of this
Yeah.
and you're still with this guy. I think it was also some concern there. I saw some recaps where people were like, man, I hope her finances are locked up. I hope she doesn't have a baby by him too soon. And so Vanessa jumped straight to the point, asked Tyler, you know, you admitted to having these kids and that you donated sperm to a friend. He says that he helped a friend and her wife conceive. The wife left, and that he stepped up to help out, to be a father figure or a dad, didn't want to leave her to be a single mom, and realized that he was in too deep and wanted a way out. So the most generic of responses ever. And Ashley says that she already knew. What we saw on camera was a reenactment of a conversation they had offline where they didn't want to divulge too much about the kids and get in too much detail, which I still actually don't have an issue with him telling her off camera. Because to be honest, him telling her off camera, she could have decided not to continue with the process and we wouldn't know any of these kids' business. So I will say I agree with it not being on camera, and we didn't even need to know all this. Bri was already going to do the whole court system and the
Yeah.
child support and the whole nine. So it was interesting how much Ashley wanted it to be on camera and he didn't
It was interesting how much Ashley was talking
for
when
him.
Tyler is the one we have an issue with. And it's like I understand, I understand that your man, your man, your man. I can't even say that enthusiastically, but I understand that's your man. But he's also a grown man who should be able to defend himself. I just don't ever want to be in a situation where I am sitting there giving people the business for a grown man who has a mouth and knows how to use words.
Even the way she was sitting, it was almost as though she was protecting him.
Yeah.
He had this puppy dog almost like energy, and she was, or yeah, puppy dog, and she was the mama dog
Hmm.
sitting there at an angle to protect him from to jump in at any point. In the way she was rubbing and caressing his leg, clearly, you could tell there was a lot of preparation for this moment. He
Hmm.
says, as long as my wife knows the full story and all the information and she's good with it, then I don't owe any of y'all an answer about it. And I'll say I don't think she's been hoodwinked or lied to, or I think she knows. I think she
Yeah, she's just
knows.
okay with it.
I think she's just okay with it. I don't think that I think he got to a certain point where, as I said before, he really wants her. And I think he knew if he ever had a fighting chance, he was going to have to lay it all on the line. And I think she knows a lot and is willing to help him through this.
I think so. As long as you're bringing me the coffee every morning, as long as you're bringing me the Trader Joe flowers or whatever flowers you're bringing,
And they,
it's sad to see.
according to them, this last year has been amazing of them being in this bubble where up until like a month or two ago where no one knew that they were together still, and they've been having a great time. No mention of the kids, and if there's been any type of attempt for reconciliation, um
But there hasn't been because Bride just, or maybe there could not have been because legal documents, or I don't know, but
we don't
I
know.
wish the Lachey's would have questioned, and I understand they're a part of this Love is Blind family, so they wanted to be respectful of the marriage,
They
but
could have at least asked, is there any plans on incorporating the children into your lives? That's all
now
I
that
would want to know at this
now that
point.
they know you, now that they've been calling you dad, like and your mom was their grandma, like how
Oh
do you
yeah,
think
and
that impacts
where
them?
where was your mom, Tyler? We have questions for her. I
For
tried to
her.
give, oh, lady, I tried to give you the benefit of the doubt last recap, but apparently you knew about all of this mess, and so these are still your grandkids. I will say, Ashley said for us to mind our business, and to be honest, that's what we're gonna do
She
going
ain't got to worry
forward.
about us.
We go mind our business, and I could just only hope and pray for the kids' sake that maybe there is a change of heart at some point to have him back in their lives if it's going
Mhm.
to be stable, not this whole in and out thing. And I hope that Ashley, as much as has her big girl panties on to help him through this situation, that she is also mentally and emotionally prepared potentially for her time to come. To me, that's where the accountability starts with her. Like, I'm not gonna put it all on her that he's a deadbeat dad and that she's supposed to absorb all this and that she's supposed to woo this man or try to convince him to be a father and do
Mhm.
the right thing. I also don't think she should be with him, but I also am not gonna put that on her. He's a grown man. He's been moving reckless in these streets, and
Yeah.
for her sake, I hope that she's okay and we minding our business going forward.
I will say just to like other women out there, uh one, there will always be men like Tyler as long as there are women like Ashley, unfortunately.
Mhm.
I wanted to believe the best. I always like to think we've come so far from the generation that just let men do anything because we wanted love so bad. Ashley has proven me wrong. But to other women out there, I hope they see her as a cautionary tale. Like when you're in love, and maybe she doesn't care. Maybe the people around her are super supportive. Like you heard Garrett saying, "We got your back, Tyler," or
Her
whatever,
mom.
and her mom. And so, I think for someone who like Ashley, who seems to be like the paragon of like a successful black woman, you
Mhm.
know, um, I wish women like her and other women realize that you can have the beautiful love story without all this baggage. And Ashley acting like Tyler's the last man on the planet. This is a love that you can never get. I promise you, you can replicate that or get even better. Like these
Yeah.
feelings can come up like there are better situations where you can be in and still feel that level of connection.
And I wonder, and I don't want to read too deep on her, but you remember how we were talking about how Hannah's self esteem is so, issues are so obvious,
Hmm.
given how she was constantly putting down Nick D. I
Hmm.
wonder with Ashley, as beautiful as she is, there's something there, I think, where she may feel like this is the best I can do. I wonder, like, how do you seemingly have it all and this is what you feel like you'd be relegated to. Now, I know the dating streets are crazy, but I feel like Tyler is such these things are at just a whole another level. And another thing to me about this situation that's an issue is I think there's levels to having patience in a relationship and giving people second chances.
Yes.
I think we just try to group it all in one bucket and you can't just
Hmm.
run. You can't just, no, some things are okay to run from. Some
Some
things are okay. Some people
Get
are
your
okay to
Forrest Gump on.
move on from.
Yeah.
It's like they try to throw it all in one bucket. He's
Hmm.
proven to be a liar, a cheater, abandoning his kids, not paying people back money. So I think for him, it's a character and moral issue and not just, oh, my partner fell on hard times or we had an argument. And
Yeah.
issues will come up in a relationship, but should you be dealing with these types of issues and trying to rehabilitate a person? And for her, it's worth it, I guess.
Well, if you like it, I love it. Actually, I actually hate it, but I wish I could root for you, sister, but I cannot. I hope it works out for you, and Godspeed.
Yeah, that's that.
All right. I mean, I didn't care much for the updates on other people, but it was great to see AD, and I'm glad that she has someone. So happy for
Yeah,
her.
she looks amazing per
She
usual.
looks amazing. And her and Marshall's facial expressions, I
Oh,
mean, bring them back every reunion.
right.
All right, Marissa and Ramses. People are gonna hate that I'm gonna say this, but
Hmm.
I respect Ramses in his ability to accept responsibility, hold himself accountable, and not be involved in more messiness. I think he held his composure in ways that many people would not, and I commend him for it. He showed up. He did what he needed to do, and it seemed like moved on with his life.
Yeah. Yeah, so he says, well, she says, watching it back, it was like reliving it, difficult to watch. He said the same thing because obviously he didn't get all of the footage of her breakdown, and so
Hmm.
he admitted
Hmm.
that it was hard for him as well. But he stands by the fact that they weren't the right match, and he even goes as far to say that after being with her a while after the pause when they're living together in the apartments that the energy wasn't the right balance and right match. He said that he realized being with her
Hmm.
that he would end up being exhausted and overwhelmed.
Overwhelmed.
So we got a little bit more detail and based off some other things that came out later in the episode when she was getting in
Yeah.
other people's business,
Hmm.
I you remember when you were saying how you felt like we weren't going to get much from Ramses, how he's very aware of the cameras and being thoughtful about what he's saying about her.
Yeah, and I don't think he wants to drag her.
Well,
Like,
and I think he told Marissa, because we also find out that he didn't break up to maybe be like, hey, maybe we could just try dating. No, he cut it off, at least from a relationship standpoint, that night. And
mm-hmm.
so I think Marissa, whether it was that night or a little bit later, I think he gave her more information on why he felt like they weren't the right fit. Um,
Hmm.
and he admitted that he probably could have told her earlier, but that he also wanted more time to really evaluate, hey, I don't want to pull the plug too soon. Is this
Yeah, yeah.
something that we could work through? And I was thinking back to their final conversation, even when he's trying to tell her, even though it was a terrible uh, way of explaining it, talking about who you talk to and all of that, that was a mess.
Hmm.
She also was dismissive of him, I think, in that conversation as he's trying to tell her, like, hey, I don't think that this is going to work. There were a few other times where he did try to bring up, like, I'm having a bit of doubt here. And she's like, oh no, like, I think, we love each other. It'll be okay. It'll be fine. She had been also reassuring him as well.
Hmm.
And so I don't know. People probably won't agree with me either. I don't see Ramses as the villain in this. I don't.
Yeah. Where I saw him as the villain, he owned up to it, and that was, I could have done this sooner. I think he could have done it sooner,
Hmm.
but I don't want to see him completely as the villain, because how many times have we been in situations where we stayed longer than we should have? We
We all
saw the
have.
signs, but we're like, it can be fixed. It can be the same way that she was reassuring him and saying, oh, I think this is something we could work through. He probably felt the same way too. And so
And you don't want to be seen as a runner. Hence, how Tim checked out on Alex immediately.
I can't wait
like,
to talk about them.
like if you do the opposite, people are like, "Oh, you weren't committed to the process." And I will say that it seems as though Marissa kept asking for this reassurance, like, hey, are you okay? Are you good?
Mhm.
Because she didn't want to be blindsided. It's almost as though
Yeah.
I felt like she was kind of trying to not cheat the system or the process, but not follow it through. Meaning, you
Mm.
get 8 weeks to evaluate, do you want this to be your person for forever? Yes, you're engaged, but really you have up until the altar to decide, is this your person? That's the process, right? And so while I understand that people don't want to be blindsided, they don't want to be caught off guard, if people do start expressing doubts, which I don't have an issue with there being doubts, you should be questioning things. You should be in deep thought about, could this be for forever? This is going to be a legally binding marriage.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I I guess I don't understand this seeking of trying to get a solidified answer out of someone at week 4, at week 5, at week 6. I understand you're checking in to not be blindsided, but also you have to give the person 8 weeks to truly evaluate if they want to be legally married to you.
That
And
is the
so
risk. Yeah.
that she even told him that's a risk that we take when you fall in love. It's
Yeah.
so while I agree he could have told her earlier, but I also am of the mindset that we've all done that. Even when you're dating someone in the real world, we see people who will date for a year or two trying to evaluate, is this the person I want to be legally, emotionally, spiritually connected to? And
Mm.
I think it's almost kind of unfair to villainize the people who may take a little bit longer in that evaluation because they didn't tell you the second that they realize.
Mm-hmm.
That's also how you know, like, okay, this wasn't a rash decision. This wasn't an emotional decision that you just woke up one day and felt like you needed to do. There was some thought put into it. So I don't know.
Oh,
Maybe I'm being too easy on him. I'm like, isn't that what the 8 weeks
I mean,
for?
people think we're easy on Ramses anyway, but I will say I, I think I enjoyed watching this couple up until Netflix doing the 20 minutes of her breaking down. I enjoyed watching this couple because I thought they were the most like realistic of how you're trying to work through things with someone and then maybe you find that they're not your person. I don't fault Marissa for the reassurance. And I kind of see myself in her in that once I have in my mind, oh, I'm making it to the altar, or I have a specific goal in mind, I can do that whole dismissive thing too. Not intentionally, but just like, okay, you brought this up. We discussed it. We should be good, right? Like, because I've moved on from it. I'm like, we moved on from it. And the other person might be like, no, let's revisit XYZ on many things. And so I don't think she was intentionally dismissive. I think she was just very caught up in, I know this is like, I'm so confident about this. Let me reassure him so that he can be confident. And now we're moving on. So I don't think she was just completely, I don't think she had any ill intent. I don't think it
Oh
was
no. Yeah.
intentional for her to be dismissive
But
of
but
him.
that
She was just caught
that's
up.
where I would have loved to hear more about her thoughts on her feeling like Ramses was her person.
Hmm.
Like, Marissa, there were a few things where y'all just really weren't aligned on. And so I get where he was saying that love is not enough. Like, we're kind of caught up in the quickness
Yeah.
of this process and the physical intimacy and all of it. But it's almost like he kind of came back to earth and grounded a bit to say, okay, what does this really look like long term? While he didn't, to me, have the best explanation, I do
Yeah.
chalk that up to him kind of dancing around and trying to protect her a bit, which only made him look worse,
On camera, at least. Yeah.
at least on camera. Yeah. So, but I don't know. It's almost like, okay, Marissa, it also seemed like you just really, really, really wanted to be married as well and was willing to overlook some things that seemed to be a big deal.
Yeah, like the military thing, even though I think Ramses, like people are mad about his opinion, I think he's entitled to his opinion and it's an opinion that a lot of people have, so I'm not like surprised by it. And he stood 10 toes down and that's his business. I think for Marissa, even though she has like distanced her own self from serving, and does realize, the complications of it, maybe she's not as far along as he is, and maybe she does not want to be. So if I were her, that would have given me some pause, like, this is still my world. I'm not ready to move away from it. I want some more questioning around this. I want some more conversation around it. But in the end, I do think they were people who really liked each other. I don't see either of them as a villain, although this episode, I saw the energy comment, and I don't think her energy is too much. I don't think you're too much for the right people. I think maybe the things that she gives her energy to and the way that she approaches those things, seeing a Ramses, it makes sense now
Yeah,
why
it's
he
not
would
going to
have
work.
he felt overwhelmed with her mom. And so it's like, imagine feeling overwhelmed with your mom and also your partner. So I don't think it's her. I think there are things maybe she could tweak, and it's not her big personality or her big energy. It's, you don't have to give big energy to everything.
Yeah, and I also think too, like I know a few weeks ago, I saw some comments where people were saying like, oh, she shouldn't have to change for him. She shouldn't have to change for him. I agree.
Yeah.
I think it's one of those things where we all have things about ourselves when not done in the right ways at the right times. It's like those people who love to tell jokes and they're just so funny. I could appreciate a comedic moment or a person who wants to be funny and joke around, but you also have to know there's a right time and place for everything. And
Hmm.
so it's not that I'm trying to change you from being funny, it's
Yeah.
that I would need you to be able to adjust it in the right moments
Hmm.
that makes sense. And I think we all have areas where if you want to be partnered, you're probably going to have to tweak it.
Even if you don't want to be partner, we should always be working on ourselves,
Right.
because even if it's not a partnership, we're
It
still
could be
in
a friend.
relationship with other people, right? So like do it for yourself and do it for the benefit of all of your relationships. I'm not one to be like, oh, we need to, center. And I know you're not either, but to center like our romantic relationships as the thing. Like, no, we have multiple relationships and we have a relationship with ourselves, and we owe it to ourselves to maybe always be improving on certain
Hmm.
things. I like Marissa a lot, and I'm rooting for her as a person. Just think we all have things to improve on.
But then, so let's, so her mom is there, you
Yeah.
know,
Miss Vanessa.
still upset, as she should be. She did say she came over that night when they broke up, had a
Mhm.
conversation with him, even though she wanted to do other things to him, but said, I think he made the right decision
Yeah.
by
Can
calling it
you
off.
can you imagine like a Tim with a Vanessa?
Never.
The way that Ramsey sat there and ate his food, first of all, he should have thrown that gum out, but maybe he needed it for his nerves.
The way he was
But
like slumped down, he was so
I
right.
just, I, honestly, I think the way that he comported himself and the way he conducted himself this entire reunion, especially with how people were coming at him, it probably couldn't be me. And I can take a lot, but maybe he's a person who's like, it is what it is. I came to own up to the things
Mm-hmm.
I can own up to. My talking isn't going to change much.
Mm-mm.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, he's
He
just get it over with. He's already taking accountability. And I kudos to him for cutting it off, not continuing to date her romantically. Now, they did do things physically, but it sounds as though he was pretty straightforward about there not being an actual relationship going forward.
I don't know that we can conclude that from the information we got. And I wish the Lachey's would have asked, like, hold
So as far
on,
as
y'all
them
did
messing
what?
around,
Yeah, like, I don't know that they clearly stated they didn't try a romantic
well,
relationship.
Well, I heard two things
Okay.
offline. I heard one first that 6 months later she hit him up and her mom did as far as exploring them being in a relationship again, and he said no.
Did I miss that?
Yeah. Yeah, apparently I think she talked about it in an interview or something. Y'all
Okay.
can correct me in the comments, but they said 6 months later she did hit him up trying to explore the relationship again.
Mm,
And then I don't know if it was, I think it was before the 6 months, they were still messing around physically, where
hmm.
she kind of outed herself, which I'm like, girl,
I would
mind your
never.
business.
The way I would, because he wouldn't have said it.
Oh, and the look on her mom's face, the look on his face, they could not believe that
Well,
she said that.
so I don't even know if the mom knew, because that looked
She
like
didn't know. There's no way
that
she
looked like
knew.
surprise. She
There's
was
no way.
like literally her jaw dropped.
And to, I think part of it was, oh girl, I obviously she's always going to have her daughter's back,
Mhm.
but to not have that kind of information, to not tell your mom that and have her come to the reunion with that information missing.
And then to drop that at the reunion if your mom didn't know. And so this was one of the areas where I was like, okay, I just think Marissa needs to be more mindful of of how she presents. Like, everybody does not have to know everything. You can have big energy and still keep certain things to yourself if they're not helping you, because at this point we have moved on from you. We're talking about somebody else, and now you threw your business out on Front Street for
If it were
what?
left up to Ramses, he wouldn't have divulged any of that
And
information.
because
And
why?
and I think part of Marissa wanted probably to explore, okay, well, what does dating look like not being in the process? Is
Yeah,
it,
yeah.
but I think Ramses stood firm in the fact that,
Hmm.
hey, we can be physically intimate. They clearly had that part down very early on.
Yeah.
I don't know that he was leading her on like that. I think
I
she was just interested in revisiting.
I agree, but I will say if I were Ramses' friend, I would say, now why are you sleeping with this girl? You guys have a major attachment. You broke things off. If you're breaking things off, break things off and move. I think that's an area that he needs to work on, like, because maturity, which I think, he's pretty mature, but I think maturity would say this ended badly. Granted, he
Hmm.
didn't see the full breakdown, but this ended badly. Use your discretion and leave that where it is. Do not be physically involved with this person or anything because your emotions are wrapped in and her emotions are
Hmm.
wrapped in. If you seriously care for her and if you seriously don't see a future with her, cut it off and cut it off
Move
completely.
on.
So that's where I would have an issue. And that's where I do have an issue with him.
Oh yeah, he's definitely willing to go along to get
Yeah.
some,
And that's not
and
cool.
and
That's
I
not
think
cool.
from Marissa, I don't know. There's some growth there. I think that needs to happen. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
anyway, even the way that she inserted herself into this next situation, I thought was uncalled for. Miosha and I are best friends. If I were on that stage with Miosha, I would let her say what she wanted to say, but I'm not about to be her mouthpiece
And I definitely wouldn't be your mouthpiece
for him.
after watching you show your whole behind like that. There's the way I would have just sat there and let you cook, and you're gonna have to learn this big life lesson.
You'll figure it out, sis.
I would never. I would never. So they asked Hannah, and looking back, you were very direct. I didn't like how they threw that direct word in very early and then beat it to
She took
death.
it and played ball with it.
Yeah, no, you were rude and mean.
Yeah.
Says, "Oh yeah, I definitely needed to word it differently, but I stand by everything that I said."
That's
She
just who I
doubles
am.
down. Yeah, she doubles down on her treatment of him on camera, and Vanessa had to literally pull an apology out of her. She wasn't going to apologize.
And she did it. Even when they tried to pull the apology out, she didn't. I think it wasn't until Nick Nick said something in her defense that she was like, "Am I and I
Mhm.
am sorry. I was cruel to you." Well, girl, are you sorry? Because the things that you said before, "I'm sorry I was cruel to you," and the things that you said and did after you said you were cruel to him, they're not giving you're sorry.
No,
It's
and
not giving remorse.
she's not, and it's only because the internet is eating her up. And Hannah, you single handedly made Nick D famous. You a guy where we really shouldn't even really be on his side about anything. You have had us on here for how many episodes, giving him the benefit of the doubt.
And so I don't know. I feel like some things just didn't need to be said. So Garrett gave him his props for being patient. He's like, I wouldn't
To
have endured that. Um,
me.
Eventually she says she's sorry. She says she's been working on herself a lot. But I'm not seeing the fruit of her internal work. But maybe that's not for me to see, and maybe that's her business. But I don't see much change.
No, I think physically, she looks fine. To me, physically, she didn't look terrible before.
Yeah.
To me, she wasn't super overweight. She looks
No.
good. What made her not look good wasn't her
Her
physical
attitude.
appearance. It
Right.
was, to me, she has a very beautiful face, pretty eyes. I don't know. I
Mm.
just didn't, when they were like, oh, she really glowed up. She didn't look that much different to me.
No, her makeup's still the same. She's just skinnier, and so if that's a glow up, to some people, I guess. But in communities where being thicker is not a problem,
Yeah, I
it
don't know.
wasn't that much of a glow up.
I think internally there's still a lot going on there.
I
Let's talk about, you want to talk about this notebook first?
Well, I will say I think she came on the show with the agenda of making, and the other girls too, with the agenda of making Nick look as bad as Hannah. but there's nothing that they could have done to, okay, so he called her a grenade, which I don't even know what that means, but I'm guessing it means someone's not cute.
And even in that, so if we were to believe the timeline or the story, how the women outlined it, as soon as the reveal happened, they're on the honeymoon. He's already talking to the guys in private because he's smart enough not to do it on camera or with a mic on. The man
I
that you
guess he
said
does have some
isn't
intelligence, Hannah.
right. Oh, he's not smart. He's not this. He's not that. He don't know anything about life. He knows that. So he has these conversations about the attraction or how he feels about her. And I don't think that the men went right away to tell their women or that the information was communicated right away.
Hmm.
It sounds like after the fact,
Yeah.
she found out when it was maybe closer to the end of them filming that he made comments about his attraction to her or how she looks.
Hmm.
However, you came out of the gate coming for this man's neck. So that does not add up. You still were rude to him the entire time. And I'll say that even if he did go to the guys and was like, she isn't the person I would see myself being with physically or whatever he communicated, I still don't see that as a reason for you to be big, mad, and in your feelings if you found out towards the end and you were already going to call things off with him.
Yeah, I think his biggest thing is he clearly did not want to admit that he called her a grenade, probably also aware of his image and all of that. The way the men sat there quietly and nobody that if it were you, that's how I would have been. Like, I want you to admit it. I want you to be honest and just be upfront. But am I gonna be the one to say it?
And the way that Marissa was like, just admit it. Just, Ramses,
All of them,
speak.
Monica.
Yeah. But the thing is, none of y'all heard this directly. And I stand by the fact, even when Steven was like, yeah, he said it, but then he was like,
Took
actually,
it
no,
back.
he didn't say grenade. He said something about a rating system. So I
Mm,
think there was a bigger conversation that the guys had around, are you attracted to what you got? Da da da. Da.
mhm.
What would you rate them? I think there was a conversation that was had where some of the men dropped the ball and went back and were pillow talking to their
Of course.
women.
Did they drop the ball? I feel like they were men. Men be talking just as much as us.
So I think the difference is that the other relationships broke up. So it had they worked out, and we probably wouldn't even be hearing any of this. I don't think it's uncommon for people to express, "Hey, I got what I wanted. No, I didn't get what I want." I just think that Hannah and Marissa were trying to justify her behavior the
Mm.
entire season as though even when she said, "Oh, well, I was even being mean to you. You just took it." Girl,
You proven the point. But I mean, I did appreciate when Ramses was like, "Hey, if there's a time to do it," he ain't say nothing else. Oh, sorry, Ramses. We didn't say that. Ramses addressed the period and the contraceptive.
oh
Like
yeah, yeah.
he addressed that. So apparently there was a larger conversation, and what he's being nailed on the cross for, there was more to it. And he said that they arrived at something that worked for both of them, and that's how they were able to move forward. So
Mhm.
it seemed like it worked out.
Yeah.
I don't know if people are going to take that, as humanity, as Ashley said, humanity has a way of, if this is how I see you, that's how I see you, and you're dead to me.
I also think people expect there to not be a conversation
Hmm.
in depth around these things.
Yeah.
I just don't know how realistic that is
Yeah.
in real
Okay.
life. But okay.
But Ramses eventually spoke up and was like, hey, if there's a time to just own up to something that you said, this is the time to do it. We all make mistakes. None of us is perfect. Like, just go ahead and own up to anything that you said, which I think was cool. And then Nick admitted to it. Nick needs some guidance. He needs like big brothers around him, I
To,
think.
to be honest, I'm gonna tell you, I kind of wish all of the men would have just sat there and ate their food, not said a
Really?
word. Absolutely. Because the issue of what he said about her physically never became an issue while filming. They're
Mm.
conflating two different issues. Okay, he wasn't attracted to her, but you mean to tell me if Hannah knew that information the whole time,
Mm.
as direct as she is, she wouldn't have addressed him
Brought it
about
on
it?
TV. Oh yeah, she
I
would
don't
have.
believe it. So it's
Yeah.
I get what you're saying, but I also wish that, like for me, if my man told me something, it would be a cold day before I try to address someone else about it. Even if I knew prior information, I wouldn't have said
You
anything.
are good about that.
I
Hmm.
would just sit there, sip my tea. That's for y'all to figure out. I don't think the men should have said anything. And she's just upset, her and Marissa, that she's being drug all over the internet for treating him the way that she did. And
Yeah.
Marissa, you had all this energy. I just didn't like the optics of her.
It's not her fight. And I feel this way about a lot of, like, women of color, especially black women, fighting battles that aren't ours because we want to, like, protect other people. And we see it with Ashley, and we're seeing it with Marissa. Hannah was trash on this show. Her attitude was trash. There's no defending it. There's nothing that you can point out about Nick D. One that we don't already know. We know he stays home with his mom. We know he hasn't had the experience of living out. Like, we know all that. So there's nothing that you can say that will make us think he's at the level of Hannah. You yourself, Marissa, even admitted that there have been times where you've had to get Hannah together, and everybody has had those experiences with Hannah. So perhaps the problem is just Hannah, and Nick D admitting that he said the grenade comment or not does not change that your friend has some work that needs to be done.
And
Um,
even with the whole note thing of
yeah.
her going through his notes where he had these goals of, I want to get in shape, I want to sell houses, I want to be the biggest star on Love is Blind. Once again, you found that when I think she said it was 2 weeks left.
After, no, she said, yeah, she said she found it after they broke up, when her and her friends were packing his things.
So what does that have to do with how you were treating him this entire time?
Nothing.
And,
And
and
he,
honestly, I don't, girl, is much as you think Nick D isn't intelligent, he was smart enough to play the game, to be respectful of you on camera, and you
hands
didn't.
off. But besides the grenade comment, there have been no,
And you
like,
know, if they had any footage of this man,
disrespecting her.
they would have showed it.
Yeah.
So just take the L, learn to take some accountability. Marissa,
Yeah.
mind your business.
Mm-hmm.
And it's almost like you were trying to get Ramses on the spot again in a scenario that had nothing to do with y'all.
This was Ramses the entire time. He was just there. He said, "I'm here so I don't get fined." Like, that was him.
No,
Okay.
I hated that. Oh, I hated it.
Hannah said something like, "Oh, well, you haven't even sent me a text since the breakup or whatever." And it's like, he does not owe you that. And girls are DMing me. Well, tell the girls to stop. I don't know. Like, it doesn't concern you. He can talk to other people. He doesn't have to talk to you. Y'all are not friends. You're not friendly, for
Mm-mm.
starters. So, yeah. Okay. The conversation about Katie, Katie said it tore her apart. She even sent her flowers. Vanessa, Marissa's mom, she made you feel like crap for a whole year about it. Why you instigating?
She was
I
having
was
too much
weak, but
fun.
is she wrong? She is not wrong.
She is not wrong. Your best friend. Y'all are not best friends. And
You're
I
not.
stand with him on you. Your insecurities were showing through. You were bullying me.
Hmm.
You're getting in, you're feeling away about Katie, who hasn't done anything to you.
Yeah.
And so I stand with him on that. And we find out you went to go try to hang out with him a month after the
Yeah.
filming. And so I agree with him. If he's not smart, he's immature, he's all these things, he's disrespectful. Why are
Hmm.
you trying to spend time with this man when things have been called off?
Yeah.
Okay.
Can we quickly move past Leo and Brittany and Steven
Oh.
and Monica so we can get to Tim and Alex? I mean, Leo and Brittany, I mean, I could have done without them coming back, but
Mm-hmm.
they went to Miami. It didn't work out. They're good friends. Leo overcooked the money a little bit. Um, and Brittany said something like, vacation is make or break in a relationship. Girl,
Girl.
all right. Steven and Monica,
Yeah.
one thing about Steven, he's gonna take full responsibility. And
It
that's
was
what's
me.
so annoying. You're absolutely right. Yeah, and I apologize for that. Stop doing wrong things, Steven. You too grown for this.
But you know that just triggers Monica even more because I feel like she can't roast him the way that she really wants because he's so quick to
He's so
take
apologetic.
accountability. And
Yeah.
I will say I didn't care for how she kept interrupting him. Let him talk.
It's been a year now. You should be far more resolved. You guys have had conversations about it. Like, I think she's just fake mad for the cameras because, like, how people want Marissa to be mad at Ramses, like, she thinks people want her to still be mad at Steven, so she has to keep this up. Girl, let it go. It's
And not even just after a year, you really didn't want Steven to begin with. And I wish the Lachey's would have brought up more conversation. Like, obviously, the whole cheating thing and the texting was a thing. But even before that point, you were so irritated with this man, even
yeah,
on the honeymoon. So I wanted someone to ask a question around what were your genuine thoughts and feelings around if this relationship could actually work.
yeah,
It wasn't going to, and she knew that.
yeah.
So, he did admit I have a problem. He know he needs to get work
Duh.
for it. Um, he
He
said he
didn't even have to
rehearsed
admit
it,
that. He said nobody cares his side of the story. We don't, because you wrong. Like,
and yeah, he definitely has a problem. He needs to be single until he can work through that.
no, he needs to be single, period. That's it. Put an end
Dang,
to
for
that.
forever.
He's I some people do change. I don't I don't have much hope for Steven. I
I will say, he looked, I don't know, the extra facial hair and the way he looks, I could definitely see how he's not. I don't know how this man went his whole life thinking
he was
he
non-black.
or that he
Yeah.
wasn't mixed with black at some point in there because it's so obvious.
You think so? Okay.
I think with the hair more fully grown in,
Yeah, yeah.
you could definitely see it. Even his facial features, like take away his skin tone, his nose, his lips. I can see it
That's
in
fair.
him. Yeah. Because a lot of people get caught up on skin tone, but you have to look at the facial features too.
Because you got to study the
You
structure,
gotta
the
look.
bone structure, and the
The cheekbones.
Alex and Tim. I I think you owe me an apology.
About what?
Because I had called several things and I felt like you let me have it, but you weren't like fully trusting me.
Okay.
So,
What things? You got to remind me. I don't even remember.
okay, well, you didn't object to this, but I said that he was a podcast bro. Um, and something he
Mm.
said during this episode made it very clear to
Oh,
me
really?
at
Oh,
least.
okay. What did he say?
He said, "Oh, I bolded it in my notes.
Mhm.
Y'all ask men to take you serious, and why would you belittle me? Y'all ask. Are we
Yeah.
talking about Alex or are we talking about all women?
I think I did agree with you that he was Kevin Samuel's podcast bro
Okay.
follower. Yeah, I did. We
Also,
agreed on that part.
okay, wait. We'll get to stuff and I'll point it out. But they addressed the argument where Alex said that her dad had been admitted into a rehab facility, I guess a week after she had left, and she wanted the space. I don't fault Tim for following behind her and being like, hey, your energy changed. Is everything okay? Is everything all right? I don't fault him for that. However, if someone clearly does not want to share with you what is going on, at a certain point, your concern for them should not overtake what is going on with them. You know something's happening. Step back and give them the space. And when they're ready, they'll come back to you and they'll talk to you. She doesn't have to talk to you in the moment about what she's grieving about. That's how
I'm
I
going
feel.
to say this.
Okay.
I could see it going two ways. Either she was being truthful about being overwhelmed and her dad being in this situation and needing a moment, And for whatever reason, at that moment, she didn't want to communicate that, or something else was going on. I don't know. It
I do wish they would have asked more questions like, oh, how did you find out about your dad, being in the rehab facility? If it was a week after you left, like, I don't know if they had their phones back at this point. So I would have asked those
Well, they
types of
did say it
questions.
had been 2 weeks, so he went in before she left for the experience.
Was it
So
before she left or a week after she left?
I thought that it was before she left, but regardless,
Hmm.
to me, I understand being in your emotions and your feelings. I'm just trying to connect the dots on if I'm upset about something regarding my family
Hmm.
that doesn't have anything to do with you.
No.
Um, I guess for me in my mind, I think Tim is a trip, and the way he handled it was definitely wrong. I think he should have left it where it was.
Mm.
I just don't know. Because I even said that in the first review. What was it that you couldn't communicate? At what point did you communicate to him that it was your dad?
Hmm. But
I don't know.
I,
So something about
so
that
do you
just
feel like
seems
she
odd.
should have communicated it in that moment?
I guess for me, if you're at a party, you're having a good time, all of a sudden your energy changes, and I get things can hit you out of nowhere.
And she stepped away. So it
I
doesn't seem
agree
like she
with
was
that.
bringing her
I
feelings
guess
to the gathering.
at any point in the back and forth, I guess the way my mind works,
Mm.
if I see my partner really digging and trying to get to
Mm.
the root of whatever's going on with me, I'm newly married, I probably would just say I'm sad because my dad is in rehab.
You see, I wouldn't. I wouldn't. Um, if anything, it would make me shut down even more. Now, not
Mm.
only do I want to not tell you what is going on with me because this is a like vulnerable thing and you're not creating space for me to be vulnerable, but now I want to shut down even farther because, or even further because you're making me sad now. Like now I can't
Mm.
even grieve the thing that I was grieving properly. Now I have to grieve my new partner putting this pressure on me and being mean to me. So I would not respond well to having to tell him in that moment. I wouldn't personally. I know this
Yeah,
about
I
me
don't
for a
know.
fact.
It seems, I guess because they're so new, he
Yeah.
doesn't know her. I just think that in my mind, at a high level, communicate something to let them know it's not you.
And that
And
is fair.
and
So if we're,
only because it's like people will naturally start to connect the dots on you did something, it's me.
I agree.
I'm not saying she had to give a full rundown of her emotions and feelings. It's
No,
just, I think if you give, is I don't know. I kind of feel like if she would have given just a little bit more, and he would, I think both of them could have handled it better. If she could have given more information, but not give her all of her emotions and feelings, and okay, just go to bed and rest. And I think if he would have respected the little that she did give,
mm.
I think this could have been avoided. But they shouldn't have been together in the first place. So
Yes, but I think if we're giving him credit for, oh, well, he doesn't know her yet. And so, his response maybe was okay, I just don't have all of the information. Then
mhm.
we also have to give her credit for, well, I'm also new. So in this moment, I'm responding to what I'm feeling. And maybe it doesn't strike me that I need to communicate that to you right at this moment. Like I'm asking you for space, and that should be enough.
I guess my question would be if you knew that your dad went in rehab,
Mhm.
you think that that's something that's you wouldn't communicate just so that your partner knows, like, oh man, like my in-law is in a medical situation that's serious.
So, and this was another thing I wish there were questions around because if he did go in a week before she came, perhaps that was something that was discussed in the pods. We don't know that, right? So I don't think
Yeah.
unless she got the information while they were on vacation, which is why I was so confused. Unless she got the information while they were on vacation, um, maybe that was something that was always a possibility. So I agree with you that he was new. He was just being nice and responding to the situation at hand and didn't know how to handle it. I think also when someone says that they need space repeatedly, whatever they need space for, you give it to them. And then thirdly, what you do not do is then make that situation about you in that moment. If later on down the road, Tim had the emotional maturity to say, I didn't appreciate how you shut me out. I wanted to be there for you. I understand you needed your space, but for me, I thought I had done something wrong, and that was alarming for me. Like at that moment, I just wanted to fix it. Like there was a place and a time to have that conversation. It was not when she was upset about whatever she was upset about and asking for space.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just like, yeah, it's this all just seems real silly to me, honestly.
Now he said, so they go back to the apartment or the place. Remember, we had talked about her covering the. This is the thing. We talked about her covering his mouth. And I said, I would assume it was the same way how when he was making the dog comment when they first met and she was trying to cover his mouth like, no, don't ruin the moment, don't ruin the moment. That's what I had assumed the hand over mouth thing was, which he felt it was a total he felt it was disrespectful to his space, and I think that's fair, right?
Yeah, because the context is
But
different.
the context seems very different. So they both agree, him being a black man, not wanting to draw attention to themselves, production being right outside. He said his voice carries, which I have thoughts on that too. And so she was covering his mouth so that production wouldn't come and make it a bigger deal. So it seems that one thing they're aligned on is let's protect the black man and his image on this television show. And maybe they were both trying to do that. And one of the ways of her doing it was the hand over the mouth. He agreed that it wasn't aggressive. There was
Yeah,
no
I
like
don't. I
violence.
never took that it was aggressive per se. I still would like, girl. Yeah, don't. I don't. You don't. If you're in an argument, don't put your hands. First of all, don't even be in each other's space. Y'all don't know each
They
other
said they were
like
in a
that.
closet though, and production was outside.
Yeah,
So
I guess for me, it's just kind of like y'all don't know each other. Y'all, this man already gives antagonistic energy.
to us, but he was also giving love to her. Like she doesn't know and see him the way
But
we
in the
see him.
moment you're arguing, and I guess for me, if he's getting raising his voice, disrespecting you, girl, for your own safety, back
Okay,
away.
but I don't know. I just feel like that is a little unfair considering her trying to protect his image. But that's just me. Again, that's something that violated his boundaries. Once he communicated that, I think an apology is definitely appropriate.
Hmm.
But they both have said she was covering his mouth to not have this be a bigger thing, to not reflect poorly on him. I just, I don't know. And it could be because Tim has rubbed me the wrong way since the beginning.
I think both of these people kind of rub me the wrong. Like, I is irritating as Tim is, and a lot of growth that needs to happen. I also feel like I see a lot of areas for growth in her, and
Agreed.
it's a poor match. And so it's all these little things. Even though, oh yeah, I did call you a little A B.
And I think that was awful. So here's the
It's
thing. I think a lot of so
like
that
I'm not
offense.
defending this girl.
Right. That offense, the hand over the mouth, I don't necessarily think was like fitting of any punishment. I do see why he left after being called out of his name. Um Again, we wouldn't be here if Tim had just let her have space, but that does not mean that she should have done that. I think that's taking it way too far. I don't care how long you've known a person, you have to have maturity enough to not call them out of their name? Like what type? It's like people who hit because, well, they made me upset, so I hit them. I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, and I think in the argument, Tim, he was getting way too loud. I think he was doing the most. I think it was both of them. Even in the pause, the way she described how she used to have a temper, she
Mm,
used to have a lack of control as far as conflict. I think it was both of them. I think even the way she was dismissive of calling this man out of his name, like, yeah,
yeah.
and
Can I say something
girl.
real quick? Because she said, if we're talking about violating space, his finger was in her face. And so
That's
that
why
is
I said
also some,
it's. I think it was both of them
yeah. Anyway,
doing wrong. I think for me, in summary, because we do have to get moving, but
yeah.
I think for me, it was a bad match, very bad communication that I don't even want to go into all the details of, oh, the texting and the this and the that. I will say, on his part, there's a lot of growth. I know he may think he's not coming across as angry and upset, but he's clearly very pressed. And I think part of that isn't just her. I think it's the internet roasting him and he's reading the comments. So I think the energy he had wasn't just towards her, it's the whole
For
process
sure.
and people dragging him.
And he wants to have his day in court. Like he wants to not feel misunderstood, which I think is fair.
And so I think while I say that about him, I think on her end, I don't know. I just always got, I don't want to say lazy, but low effort energy on her part.
Mhm.
So I don't know. Y'all just didn't need to be together. It's
Yeah. I think when I see Alex being dragged, I feel like the responses to her aren't fitting the crime. I think the biggest thing that she did that I was like, ooh, don't ever do that again, is calling him out of his name. I think that is never, never, ever okay. But everything else that he listed as examples, to me, they're not massive offenses.
oh, I
And he's
agree. And
making them massive.
under normal circumstances, and I think because the fallouts they had were flipped, because she started out calling this man a little
She
AB.
didn't start out.
Well, didn't start off. I'm saying like it's your first argument
Mm,
and you call this man out of his name, not your fifth
fair.
argument, not y'all been together for 5 years and you lost control in the moment and he knows like, or it could even if he did it, oh, I know this person's character, they're not usually like this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That is a very extreme way to, I think, to start your first disagreement as far as how you
Fair.
handle it, that everything she did after is magnified versus say
Hmm.
that argument didn't happen and say she didn't call him out of his name until after she met the parents and all those other little things had happened. I think it just started off on too bad of a note for him and he never recovered.
Mm,
And to be
that's
honest,
fair
I
too.
think the only reason he went back in that apartment after being called that was because production was like, hey, you signed this contract, you're gonna have to. I just, even the way he said, he was like, oh, I didn't look checked out. Dude, you were checked out.
Hmm.
Cap.
Yeah.
Now, we saw the dead look in your eyes when she tried to hug you.
Yeah.
Come
I
on.
think I feel like his whole why do you have an attitude when I'm just trying to love you? I'm like, okay, that's very reductive. Like that's not what's going on here. And even with the communication thing that comes up later on, he's like, and you're my fiance and I haven't heard from you in this time. I am sorry if I'm someone's fiance and I have a bad tire and they haven't heard from me in a while, there better be a search team looking for me at this point. Like, you are not waiting to hear from her because maybe you're thinking something has gone wrong. But the way that he was speaking led me to kind of believe he felt like, oh, if you're my fiance, because he emphasized the my
Mhm.
fiance, there was almost like an ownership there that I didn't like to hear. Like,
Mm.
you have to be this way because I own you. That's how it felt.
And it's like, dude, you want all these brownie points for things you should be doing anyways. So for me, that was also a red flag in that, I don't know, these just seem like basic things you would do for anyone, even a
Hmm.
best friend. I'm like, oh, this happened to you. Let me check in. Let me make sure
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
okay. Um,
He said he was worried about her safety. I think at some point, maybe, but I think his
I ain't
feeling
mind.
hurt that he hadn't heard from her took, oh, yeah, it's just, and
I
then,
these people didn't like each other.
okay, but we do have to address that the day before they met his parents,
Hmm.
um, they had a dinner and he said that he had doubts, and this was right after he had done the whole thing for his dad. So I could
Hmm.
see her feeling like, you just played in my dad's face. But then that's how she went into the meeting. I think for Alex, I get where she's like, I don't want to do the most because I'm meeting your parents after you said you had doubts, so we not might not make it anyway. But I think there is a lesson here that maybe no matter what's going on, there will be moments where you still have to show up for your person, and you can't just be.
And the thing, this is to me is also connected to um, the apartment thing, the way it looked, and even the amount of effort she put into hosting her own family and his family.
Mhm.
Things could be going on, but you still have your own image and
Mhm.
reputation. And so I would hope one of the things that she learns from this is, girl, think about yourself in these moments where even if you said you had doubts, I would, the way she greeted these people with the hand in the pocket, and I get you, he had doubts. You're going to have doubts in this process. He may
Yeah,
have even made you upset, right? How many couples get into it
yeah,
right before the in-laws come over, or
yeah.
right
But
before
you still
you
have to be
still,
hospitable.
what
Like
what
even
does
if
that
you,
have to do with them? And
yeah,
I feel like for me, I don't want to say it speaks to her character, but maybe it speaks to her life experience in
mm,
that maybe she just doesn't know how to pull it together for the sake of her own image and to just
yes.
be good to them as people. If it were me, I don't know, I wouldn't have booked my first bartending gig the night that his family was in town. Like,
Uh, okay. I
I don't
I
know.
don't know what came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know if she already had that bartending gig established, and
Yeah.
then, that just was the best day his family could come in town. So I don't want to speak on that. But I think whether you end up with Tim or not, you have to represent Alex before anybody else. And
Yes.
so I wouldn't want anybody to walk away with a negative perception of me based on my actions. Like, I don't want to give them reasons to walk away thinking of me negatively. There's some things that you can't control, but first impressions do matter. So for Alex's sake, she should have been more warm and welcoming to the family. The last thing
Mm.
that I will say is, I think Alex communicated how she wanted her family to be treated very clearly. And I think Tim just fell under the expectation that if this is what,
Hmm.
like,
He
this
was
is how it
assuming.
should, like, he had an idea of, oh, based on what she wanted for her family, this is how it would look for mine. And I think it doesn't hurt to say, okay, so we had this whole sit down about how you wanted your family's meeting to go. Here's how I would like my family meeting. I don't think there's a problem with over communicating at all.
Yeah. I
Um,
think Tim, he lacked in communication in that area. Cause like say
mhm.
they were a different culture, like you do have to give people
Yeah.
the rundown on maybe what to expect from your
Hmm.
family. I would also say too, I can get where he's like, I can't spell out every single detail.
Yeah.
So
But in this case, he should have spelled out something. I
yeah, he
think
should have spelled out something. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah, I think Alice is a good communicator. Um, Not communicator, but I think she expresses herself when there's something, to gain for her. Like her family, I want them
Hmm.
treated a certain way. And I think she could benefit from being a better communicator in other ways and like listening or just like, taking certain cues. But uh,
And I think for him, because he's very much, I think he wants someone who's ready made, who already
yes.
knows certain things. And I think that's unrealistic in some areas.
Hmm.
At the same time, I could get with, you're an adult. I can't raise you. I think for me, I would try to find that balance of I'm going to communicate, but I'm also going to maybe take the time that they don't have in this process to
Hmm.
observe what do you do on your own. So
Mm.
obviously, it won't be every little detail, but you have to
Yeah.
communicate something.
Yeah, because you know what statement I hate that people say, I shouldn't have to tell you to this because a lot of times for me, you do have to tell me like I might not, depending on where you fall in my day, you might just have to tell me, I'm sorry, but I will do it exactly how you want it done. Sometimes I just need a little direction.
Yeah.
Not
Alex
that
is a
Alex is
different.
that way, because I don't think she was gonna give that effort anyway.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
got low. Tim was Tim, but I did get low effort from her.
fair.
So for me,
I think
it's
she's
like
a
you
low
have this
effort person. Did you see her
right.
house?
Like it gives low effort, and then you have this guy
Yeah.
who wants maybe a picture perfect person, and that's just not the right fit. It's not the
Yeah.
right match.
Yeah.
And I will say, for Alex, like if he really was, I do wonder if he really was the man. Maybe if he presented himself better, would we have gotten maybe a better version of her? Part of me wants to say yes, but I also think part of this also is maybe just how she is.
Hmm.
Because I don't know. I think part of where we are projecting a bit in that we wouldn't have taken the nap. We would have powered through. We would have cleaned
Yeah.
our house up. We would have put
Yeah. Yeah.
effort into hosting his family. So I
Hmm.
think part of that is we operate how we operate. And so we're kind of putting it onto her like, girl, you could have did a little bit more.
Yeah.
But maybe it's just
Yeah.
not her.
All right. We do have to go.
Yeah, we
But
do.
let us know in the comments what you thought about this. And we will see y'all for Married at First Sight.
All
Bye.
right. Bye.